Hello everybody, my name is Manu and welcome to another Eternal Contenders video series. Today I want to finally talk about Xenan Killers. Tiger HC has been playing that deck a ton, as some of you might know, and I have talked to him a bunch about it and we exchanged some opinions and we agree on a lot of the choices in the deck. There are some minor differences between my version and his version, but all in all, we agree on, like, I don't know, 95% of the cards or something. And today I want to present you the list that I would recommend and that he and I have had good results on ladder with. He has been in the top 10 constantly with mostly playing killers, for example, and I have played the deck a fair share lately and had good results with it too. Alright, so let's dive into the deck. The deck is basically a pretty proactive mid-range deck. It curves up to 6 with Predatory Carnosaur and plays a bunch of removal and has some built-in grindy advantage cards that help it sustain its slower aggressive game plan compared to like a true aggressive deck that just tries to end the game as quick as possible. This deck more basically tries to overwhelm the opponent with a powerful board position of a lot of beefy units and push them over the edge basically, and grinding them out with friendly Wisp, Dawnwalker and Twinbrood Sauropod and Dark Return shenanigans. Alright, so let's talk about the units. One of the core cards of the deck is Copper Conduit, due to its synergy with Dark Return. So basically you play this in the early to mid game for medium size, then it usually dies at some point and then you can get it back with Dark Return and replay it ginormously. It also has great synergy with Predator's Instinct, thanks to the overwhelm, and especially if you get it back later in big, you can kill whatever you want with it, or even sometimes just hit their smallest unit to kill them if the conduit's big enough. It's like a good way to win in board stalls if they have a small unit and not that much life anymore. You can just killer the smallest unit to deal maximum damage to their face. Then we have the 2-drops for Instigator, just an overall great powerful 2-drop, outclasses most units on 2. And the ability also synergizes with Beastcaller's Amulet, because if you put an Amulet on it and its ability triggers, it triggers the Infiltrate on the Amulet and gets you a 5/5 without ever having to have dealt combat damage to the opponent. So say they play a Temple Scribe on 2, then it's your turn 3, you slap a Beastcaller's Amulet on the Instigator and you attack. It doesn't matter what they do, like if they don't block you get a beast, if they jump block you get a beast, which is really good. Similar thing goes for Friendly Wisp, one of the nice card advantage engines of the deck, also a great Beastcaller's Amulet carrier, especially because if the Amulet triggers, the beast from the Amulet will trigger the Wisp, so they trigger each other, and the evasion from the Wisp makes it so that it almost always can connect on turn 3 with an Amulet on it. Then we have the mentioned Amulet, which is sort of a 3-drop. It's sort of a 6/5 for 5 with the 1 attack having charge on the unit you put it on, and then you get a regular 5/5 if you connect, which is really powerful, but as you can see it's pretty conditional, so it's not super reliable. You need to have something to put it on, so it's not always a reliable 3-drop, and it's not always reliable a unit whatsoever. But if you can put this on a 2-drop, sometimes you can even play a Conduit on 2 to enable your Amulet. If you can put this on a 2-drop and get the beast right away on turn 3, it's really powerful and can easily swing games on turn 3 in your favor. Then we have the Dawnwalkers, the main 3-drop of the deck. The deck has so many 5 plus attack units that it's very easy to trigger. It's another way this deck can grind through sweepers and removal and blockers to wear down the opponent and overwhelm them. The other nice synergy is, once again, with Predator's Instinct, since if you put an Instinct on this, it keeps the killer, and every time it comes back, you can killer something, attack something down again. So that's really good, so keep that in mind. Then we have for Sandstorm Titan, just the typical go-to 4-drop for this type of deck when you're playing time. Just a great unit, undercosted, overstatted, helps with flyers, since as you can see the deck basically has no flyers itself other than friendly Wisp, so it's kind of soft to flyers, and having Titan helps mitigating that alongside removal. We used to have Impending Dooms at some point, like the initial list a while ago that Tiger gave me had Impending Dooms, which I didn't really like too much, partially because I didn't like to have too many 4-drops, because at a certain point they are better 3 or 5 drops than more 4-drops, because if you don't play them on turn 4, you rather get a better or a cheaper card, either to play them earlier, if you don't do something often enough on turn 3, or have something on turn 5. If you, since playing a 4-drop on turn 5 for 5 power, when you have 5 power, is not that good, so I rather have the more powerful 5-drop. And that brings me to the next card. I tried a couple of things. Tiger eventually came up with this guy, which makes a lot of sense, and this is like the go-to 5-drop, other than the Monument, which is basically a 5-drop in this deck every time you don't need it for power as well, and a pretty solid one. Sauropod has 2 nice upsides. It has great synergy with Dark Return, since Dark Return lets you draw 2 6/5s rather than the regular 1 unit, so it turns Dark Return into a pretty good 2-for-1, and if you put Killer on one of the Sauropods and get it back, you even get 2 6/5s with Killer. So there's great synergy with the Instinct and the Dark Return. And I guess you could also say there's synergy because it's a 5+ attack unit for Dawnwalker and Friendly Wisp. So it has a lot of synergy with all the things in the deck. I'm pretty sure 2 is definitely correct. The third I'm not 100% sure about. It is possible that this, for example, would be better as a third Predatory Carnosaur, for example, given that we also have Ember Monuments of 5-drops. But for now I like the Sauropods. They give the deck some extra grind potential and durability in longer games, which is nice. And next on we have Carnosaur, which at 6 is quite costly, which is why I currently decided to only run 2. But it is pretty nice. There are some things that are otherwise hard to kill. It gives the deck some additional removal without flooding on removal. It's really nice against Recano a lot of the times. A good way to kill their familiar with a weapon on it, for example, without having to get through the Aegis first and stuff like that. And yeah, it's just another beefy guy. It's a removal. It's a big attacker. It triggers all the 5+ attack stuff and so on. And it's also a nice thing to get back with Dark Return because it's a 2-for-1. It gives us, like with Dark Return, it gives us a 7/7 and the removal on almost any unit. Alright, then we have the spells, the 4 Dark Return that I already talked about plenty. Basically the power and grind engine of the deck. The 4 Predator's Instinct, which mostly go on Conduit, Dawnwalker, Sauropod, and occasionally on Titan, because it's really nice on Titan too, because you get to kill one of their attackers without losing one of your blockers, which can sometimes be really critical when you're trying to stabilize against a more aggressive opponent. Then we have some like actual cheap removal that doesn't require a unit in 3 Suffocate and 2 Annihilate. Suffocate's particularly good right now with so much Recano around and other low to the ground aggressive decks. The tempo from this card is really important, and Annihilate is just like a solid tempo gain, catch-all type thing against cards like Sandstorm Titan and so on. And big combos, big units and stuff like that. Then we have 4 Vara's Favor, which are both part of the power base and also a really nice way to control some stuff in the early game or get rid of an Aegis. Then we have two more removal. Deathstrike. Most of you probably know how much I dislike this card because 4 power is so much for removal, but it's worth keeping in mind that the deck basically has no out to a card like Cerso. So Cerso causes really big problems for a deck like this, and Deathstrike is a clean answer to a Cerso, and there can sometimes also be cards like oversized Champions of Glory, or let's say the Warden, the 7/7 for 5 from Combray and stuff like that. So having some unconditional answers to these problematic cards really benefits the deck, because if they drop their Cerso and they only have one, and we get to Deathstrike the first Cerso, that heavily swings the game in our favor, and it's even tempo positive because Cerso costs 5, and then the game turns from really rough into very winnable, and I think that's worth having some of those. But yeah, it's more a necessary evil than a card that I'm happy to run. That's it for the non-power cards. And regarding the power base, we already mentioned the Vara's Favor. Then we have 4 Ember Monument, which are both power and another nice 5-drop. And the rest is just time and shadow sigils and the typical 12 duels. I, until recently, had 2 Seek powers, but realized that the fixing is not required, and the fact that it's basically a depleted power card is more relevant than the fixing, so I replaced it with a Shadow and a Time Sigil, which also helps a bit with the Vara's Favor, because having 4 Shadow Sigil with 4 Favor is a bit borderline. Now 5 with 4 is totally fine. Also keep in mind the deck basically functions really well on 2 Time and 1 Shadow, because there's only 2 Carnosaur that cost triple Time and 2 Deathstrike that cost double Shadow, and the Vara's Favor also help with the double Shadow freely. So the color requirements at this point in this version are really low due to not having Impending Doom and only 2 Carnosaurs. So that really helps. Yeah, that's it for the deck list for now. The deck feels really nice. It's very flexible, very well rounded. It can be kind of controlling and grindy, it can be kind of aggressive. It's pretty adaptive to like what's going on in the game right now, and has a pretty high power in individual power level and individual card power. So that's it for the deck. As usual, I'm gonna jump into some games with the deck. Alright, so stay tuned for the first half of the games coming up. Thanks for watching.